So good afternoon, everyone. This is Audrey Russo, President and CEO of the Pittsburgh Technology Council, and thrilled at our guest today. Each and every day, we're trying to capture what's happening here in Pittsburgh and in the world. And today, this is Pittsburgh Focus. I'm pretty excited about our guest, who I will formally introduce in a moment, Elizabeth Conway. So before we get started, I want to as always, give my deep appreciation to Huntington Bank for the work that they've done and continue to do in our community, making sure that we are connected, that we're civically minded, and that people support a bank that does a whole lot of things, including they're one of the most active SBA providers in our region. So thrilled at their long-term partnership. And 40 by 80, that's the wholly owned subsidiary of the Pittsburgh Technology Council, which is our 501c3 charitable organization. And you're going to hear more about apprenticeship programs, but we're focused on workforce development as well as entrepreneurship. So before we get started, I always have to do housekeeping, and the housekeeping is that we have put you on mute, and you can enter questions in the chat. Jonathan will keep his eyes on that. Jonathan Kirsting, as always, is with us. He's Vice President of all things media and marketing for the Pittsburgh Tech Council. And this is not a time to sell your wares. This is a time for us to focus just on our guest. So without further ado, I'm bringing forward Elizabeth Conway, and she is a new Pittsburgher, which is something that all of us should applaud. And if it wasn't COVID, I could tell you we would be connecting her with lots and lots of people. But welcome, Elizabeth, and thank you for joining us today, and welcome to Pittsburgh. So we're going to start. I'm going to start. I always like to know, who is the person? So not just your title at Goodblend, but who is Elizabeth? Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Sure. Well, thank you first so much, Audrey, for having me. And thank you to the Pittsburgh Tech Council. It's such an honor to be here. I'm excited to be part of the community and excited to be talking to you today. I'll share that I came from a background, I started out as a lawyer and very quickly realized that wasn't such a good fit for me, but I worked in healthcare and finance and IT in Fortune 500 companies. And after starting my own business, I just saw so much opportunity in emerging sectors. I was living in Northern California, right near Silicon Valley, where many entrepreneurs were entering into highly regulated spaces. And sometimes when you're first entering, you notice that you're either highly regulated or there's no regulation whatsoever. And I was surrounded by cannabis. California's had a 25-year experience with cannabis. And as I represented those companies more and more and how they tried to build their business, I realized, wow, this touches on everything that I'm doing, from agriculture to alternative manufacturing, to breaking into markets, to talking to government, even to heavy technology, and decided to come into this business in around 2017.
Wow. So where have you been since 2017, physically located?
Yeah, so I was in Oakland, California for quite some time. And then in 2019, I moved to be the president of Parallel. That's our parent corporation's Florida operation, running everything from what we grow to how we produce our products to 39 different retail stores and multiple distribution centers around Florida. And then in late 2020, we had built Florida and really stabilized that market. I moved to do the same thing in Pennsylvania.
So you are living in Pittsburgh now for how long?
Well, I've been here for 3 months since December. Yes.
So you have not experienced spring here yet.
I'm looking out and I'm like, wow, spring is so beautiful. I can tell we're right on the verge of it. I haven't experienced it yet.
Yes, so it's great. This is one of the most beautiful seasons here in Pittsburgh. So how has it been being here during COVID and meeting people?
Well, relocating during COVID is very different because I want to get out and get to know our neighborhoods and get to know our restaurants and our businesses. our business loves to gather people. We love to gather patients and physicians, and we've really not been able to do that kind of gathering and listening. So much of it has been over Zoom that I feel like I'm chomping at the bit to get out there and start to gather folks again. It's tough to relocate during COVID, but we're doing it.
Well, no, hats off to you. And soon you will see, we will gather again, and we'll make sure that you stay connected across the community, because that's similar to what we do, is making sure that those connections materialize into, business outcomes. So really great that you're here. So let's talk about this major announcement. Let's talk about Goodblend and Parallel. Set the stage for us so we understand sort of the organization, the mission, and the work.
Sure. So Parallel, our parent company, was founded in 2014, and we really had a footprint in Florida at that time. We've grown since then with a mission to pioneer well-being and improve the quality of life through the use of cannabinoids. We've grown into five states total. We operate in Florida, Texas, Massachusetts, Nevada, and we got a license to operate in Pennsylvania in August of 2020. We're one of the 8 what's called clinical research licensees here. That means that to do business, we do grow, manufacture, process, transport, and sell cannabis through retail locations, but we also are in partnership with UPitt to do clinical research on the impact of cannabis and cannabinoids to folks with sickle cell disease, pain, anxiety, sleep disorders. Those are just some of the things that we can study together.
And so can you just give us the difference of cannabis and cannabinoids, so maybe people can really understand the difference?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question, Audrey. So cannabis is the plant. Some folks call it marijuana. We'd like to move away from calling it marijuana to cannabis, and that's the plant itself. Cannabinoids are the active ingredients, of which there are hundreds inside of the plant. And those are what really creates the different health impacts. Maybe some of those are mental, maybe some of those are physical, whether it's pain relief or sleep or anti-anxiety. And some of those are psychoactive effects. And just depending on which of those cannabinoids you pull out, that's what creates those effects.
Wow. So why Pittsburgh? So tell me, why Pittsburgh? You talked about, being awarded in 2020 in the middle of COVID as well, but why Pittsburgh?
Yeah, we strategically chose Pittsburgh because of the density of the medical sites here, the access to skilled labor. And really, I was looking for a community that folks were ready to be workers in, which you've got a great workforce here, as well as some people who maybe had cannabis experience coming from California or Colorado would want to join a vibrant community. And we thought Pittsburgh is that place. We are going to predominantly hire local, but definitely in the initial stages, we will bring in some subject matter experts around the medicine, around the operational facilities, around how to grow it, and whether they stay and become part of the community or really help us to learn in this community. We wanted a great place to live, and thus far, I've just been so excited. And of course, the Commonwealth at large is going to be, I think, a great place to cultivate cannabis and make it a stake in the ground. It's why I'm so excited about where the industry is going, because you think about what would happen if other areas knew what was going to happen in Silicon Valley. Would they have invested earlier? Would they have drawn those businesses here? And I think that's what cannabis could be in the coming decade.
And so what can you just talk about, like, what your physical presence is sort of generally, and then talk about, each aspect of where your touch points are? Is it growing, manufacturing, dispensary?
Yeah. Right now we're in build phase. These operations are massive and it can take a minute. We've got a huge construction team out on the north side building out what was formerly a giant warehouse space.
Oh,
And that space will be our predominant grow process facility. It'll be the only one for some time. And from there, we will be putting seeds into the ground for an indoor grow. We will take those plants, and sometimes we sell those plants as is. Other times we take and manufacture those plants into different products, from topicals to tinctures to capsules to inhalables. And so there's quite a bit of science as well as manufacturing that goes on out there. We will have lab space. We also do independent lab testing. And the manufacturing side of that will be pretty extensive. So that's one major footprint. It will employ, in the beginning, probably around 100, but could grow to multiple hundreds of folks there across skilled and unskilled labor categories and engineers, tradespeople. And then we'll have 6 retail locations across the Commonwealth. One is in Pittsburgh on Baum Boulevard, and that won't open until the grow process opens. The timeline for that is the early summer. And then we'll have other retail facilities also opening in Erie at the same time. And then the last 4 will be TBD.
wow. So that's great. So let's talk about the differentiators. Lots of people, lots of companies are entering into this space outside, in places where it's still recreational marijuana is still not legal. But there's been, a huge proliferation, and it's hard to discern as a consumer what the differences are in terms of everything that's coming out. What can you tell us?
Yeah. Well, I'll say that one of the differences is some of those companies only operate as maybe a storefront. Some of them only operate as a grower, or maybe only operate as a manufacturer. And we do end to end. That means we are vertically integrated. It's not that we don't work with other companies, but the capability to do every one of those processes, we think, gives us a great level of quality control and integrity to go end to end. We also have a really different store experience, and that's based on this ethos of bringing cannabinoids to everyone. We want to meet people where they are. If you're 110 years old and this is you've been smoking or using topicals for many, many years, we want you to feel comfortable coming into our store, having a conversation and buying something. And if you're a first-time patient, and wherever you are on your cannabis journey, we want those stores to be comfortable environments and trusted environments for you to walk into. So those are 2 major differentiators. I would say our brands are very reflective of that too. Whether you are a first timer, we've got a lot of education and support for that, or whether you really know what you like, you can go directly to a brand that supports that.
So Parallel has been around for how long now?
So the company was founded as Certera Wellness in 2014, and then grew into Parallel as the parent corporation, and Goodblend is how we operate as retail locations. So you walk into a store that says Goodblend over the door.
Okay. And so we'll keep our eyes open for that in terms of Baum Boulevard for sure. And you seem committed, at least on your website, in terms of conversations you mentioned earlier about community, but also about social equity. And what are some of the examples of that? What does that materially mean? A lot of people use these words freely and not necessarily demonstrate what that really means. But it seems like that's pervasive in terms of the material that I've read.
For our company, it really is. It is a moral and ethical imperative. It does make good business sense, but in cannabis, I think it's paramount that we remedy the legacy of disparate treatment toward Black and Brown communities. Incarceration even for a minor cannabis possession charge, can set a family back for generations, from gaps in income to stigma and shame to the inability to qualify for housing or banking loans. And I mean, the loss of a family member really has deep intergenerational impacts. And so as we stand up in the legal cannabis business, we want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to participate. We work with groups including the Minority Cannabis Business Association and Canna Inclusive. Those are two major groups nationally that are helping to have expungement clinics, as an example, to expunge old minor drug offenses, as well as to provide training to trades folks and diversity communities to assist with licensing. It's incredibly expensive to get into this business. It costs millions and millions. And if we can help with access to that, when everyone comes along, everyone comes along, and nobody's, it's just really important. We all need to come along together. So.
Oh, that's great. Jonathan, grab a couple of questions if you would. There's a couple of statements and questions.
Absolutely. So good to have you on the show today, Elizabeth. Really excited to have you here, and such a cool conversation, that's for sure. Our first question here wants to know, does Goodblend sell through online channels, and how does online fit into your overall strategy?
Yeah, well, certainly with COVID, everyone's digital strategy has had to step up, and online strategies go state by state, how you're allowed to buy and order online. And when we get set up in our retail locations, you will have access to us digitally. Now, whether or not you can purchase online is a whole other can of worms because of the way the industry operates largely with cash, but you will be able to do reserve ahead, meaning you'll be able to build a basket and then say, I'll drop in at the store tomorrow or later this afternoon and pick the products up easily.
Okay, great. Anything else, Jonathan?
There's some comments here talking about how cannabis has really changed people's lives for the better. Another question actually just came in right here, right now, saying, do you think CBD proliferation will help stem illegal drug abuse and crime?
So, CBD proliferation, I would say that all cannabis proliferation helps, legal cannabis proliferation helps stem the drug abuse. We've seen some early indications that folks who are addicted to opioids can use cannabis and cannabinoids to move off of the addictive substances and help alleviate their pain and their sleep issues. So, that's one way that we have an impact. The other way we have an impact is when you have a legal access to cannabis, folks do tend to convert from buying it on the street or buying it from neighbors or from unknown sources to, hey, I actually want to know what's in this. I want to know that it was tested, that it went through rigorous production protocols and got into a package, and there's nothing else in there that I don't know about. So in that way, we do see a conversion where there's a tipping point and the legal market will take over, or I should say the regulated market will take over.
That makes a lot of sense. Another question just came in wanting to know, will Goodblend be able to deliver curbside?
Yes, we do curbside services in all of the locations where we operate. And our understanding is, at least during COVID, that curbside is allowed here. And so we're making plans to have that.
So despite the federal government's treatment of this product or of all these plants and products, there's actually some amazing R&D that's going on, and even locally. So can you talk about your involvement in these research projects? I believe that you have a relationship with the University of Pittsburgh.
Yes, correct. So in order to be a clinical research licensed entity in the Commonwealth, we do have an affiliation with the University of Pittsburgh. And to do that, we're at the early stages, but the research is being set up largely around sickle cell disease, which is an incredibly painful disease. And, folks who suffer from that amount of pain also have anxiety that's often associated with that, and inability to sleep. So you can prove out multiple knock-on effects with a population that's suffering with sickle cell disease. We've given UPitt an initial unrestricted $3 million grant to get this research off the ground, and are very excited because with that panel, it will have other indications, including around using those heavier medications for pain, as well as those other impacts. At least that's what we hope. And the research is, I like to call it a snowflake on the tip of an iceberg. That's how much there is out there, because, you know, with hundreds of cannabinoids in this plant, then there are effects we don't even know about.
Right. And so the University of Pitt, they have the ability to do research in sickle cell and other pain-related diseases or situations.
Yeah, because you know, clinical research is something they really specialize in.
Yeah.
They could do a variety of different indications and studies around cannabinoids with us. We've started here because of their expertise in sickle cell disease, and we just think that that's a great place to have an immediate impact on a community that has really been suffering for a long time.
No, that's great. There are a few other questions, Jonathan.
Yeah, some really good ones are coming in here. I just love these conversations. So
Me too. You all are way better to talk to than like law enforcement, who I end up talking to police forces about the benefits here, and I end up talking to government, and this is a lot of fun. Thank you for how thoughtful you all are.
Oh, we appreciate that. Absolutely. So Craig Pritz wants to know, how do we get the industry to work with doctors as a safe alternative to pain medication?
Yeah, well, Pennsylvania has a phenomenal network of over 1,500 and building physician partners to this industry. Doctors have to take a certification course, I believe, in many states and commonwealths they do, in order to understand the use of cannabis and cannabinoids with their patients. But then they can register and work with their patients as complementary or alternative modalities to alleviate pain, help with sleep, reduce inflammation or anxiety. And so it's out there. The Department of Health website tells you all about how to do it. We also, once we get up and running, we'll be doing physician education programs and partnering more deeply with community by community physician groups to help get the word out there, answer questions, and work together.
So here's a great question. This is something, such a big issue, is how do you manage the cash aspect of this business right now?
Well, for those of you who don't know, because of federal banking rules, it's very difficult to have bank accounts and do traditional credit card transactions in this industry. And that creates issues of safety for all of us. Mm-hmm. Certainly we can do it, but we have extra layers of security at every touch point, and we have to do cash transactions. All of our locations have ATM machines in them, so that folks who walk up to a register and think they might be able to use a credit card quickly say, aha, I've got to go to the ATM and pay cash there. But we really hope that the federal government will change that rule soon, because nobody wants an all cash industry.
Right. And so,
tell us about hiring. When can you expect for people to be able to apply for jobs with Goodblend?
Oh my gosh. Now this is one of my favorite questions. So right now we have jobs posted on our parent corporation website. Okay. Maybe someone could put this in the chat. I will, but I'm not very good at multitasking. Mm-hmm. Do you mind if I say the website?
Do it. Yeah.
Okay. At www.liveparallel, LIVE, parallel, all one thread, .com pittsburgh.com/careers. We don't have a lot posted yet, but if you set that as a bookmark, every day we're really bringing on incrementally more and more. We're also reaching out through neighborhood councils, University of Pittsburgh, the Bidwell Training Center to get jobs. And at our construction facility, we're in touch with multiple trade organizations to bring folks to work in that facility through our construction partners. But that site, www.liveparallel.com/careers, you can filter according to Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania and scroll down and see what's there at any given day. But we will be posting those quite intensively over the coming weeks.
Okay, so I guess I'll grab this one, Jonathan. Will traditional health insurance cover CBD services?
Unfortunately, most health insurance does not cover reimbursement for cannabis. And there are some alternative supplemental policies out there that will reimburse for these kinds of therapies. But right now it's not allowed because it's not a federally authorized drug.
Okay. And then what about some research? Someone asked about the research in, I call it AS, but you could probably say it better than I can. You see it, it's called, I know it's very painful.
Is it maybe ALS?
No, it's called ankylosing spondylitis.
There you go. That sounds pretty good.
Well, I would say, yeah, that the results that folks report on any painful condition, I mean, whether it's shingles or arthritis and lupus, that those results, you should talk to your doctor. But we do see and hear so many reports that those painful conditions are alleviated somewhat through the use of cannabis and cannabinoids.
And so someone mentioned in here, Matt, about cash. He's saying, what about debit cards? He's seeing some movement towards debit cards.
Yeah, there are ways to use debit cards, because that's not a credit situation. Then many folks will use debit cards the same as you'd use them as at the ATM in a location. You may have a point of sale debit card as an option. There's also there are other great companies that offer services to do this that are essentially a debit transaction. So
like an
absolutely
intermediary,
right.
An intermediary. Okay.
Yeah.
So Bitcoin, right?
There are those as well. We don't do Bitcoin transactions yet, but we're growing so fast, you never know.
Right. And so in all the states that you're in, are the states that you're in have legalized recreational marijuana?
Not all of them, no. Texas, Florida, and Pennsylvania are all medical only. And then Massachusetts and Nevada have mixed medical and adult use markets.
Well, listen, you are obviously bullish on Pittsburgh and on Pennsylvania. So we thank you for your interest in our community. I think it's important for people to get educated and to understand more and more about the cannabinoids and cannabis, et cetera. But you can hear from our audience today that we have a lot of interest in the use of and what that means. So we are thrilled that you're here in Pittsburgh and that you made this move in the middle of COVID. And so what's the one thing that surprised you? Forget COVID for a minute. What's the one thing that surprised you about Pittsburgh?
I love the architecture and the murals as I go around. I'll also say I was born and raised in Louisiana, and I went to school in Boston, and I hated the snow, and I have loved the snow. So I've surprised myself in Pittsburgh, but Pittsburgh has surprised me with the architecture and the art.
Right. So just wait till the restaurants open up and you get to go to the museums and you see the beginning of a music scene. And I think you'll be really, really surprised.
Cannot wait.
So Jonathan, I think that's it in the questions, right?
We are all clear.
And Elizabeth Conway, welcome to Pittsburgh. We're glad to have you. We will stay connected. Appreciate you taking the time to be on this show today. And who do we have tomorrow, Jonathan?
Pittsburgh Promise is showing up. Lots and lots of money given out for college kids to pursue their dreams. It's really cool stuff. Can't wait to learn more about it.
It's great. People are saying on here, you will love Pittsburgh. How about that?
I know it. I know it. I can't wait. Thank you all for such a warm welcome and such an amazing community show. Like, this is so good. I can't wait to listen in.
Thank you. Stay safe, and we will see each other face to face sooner than we think.
Yes, absolutely, Audrey. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. And we will see you here tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day.